we've got the Ruffstuff kit. Now, we've ordered the 5/8 bolts, which is 16mm in metric, and the holes come 9/16 I believe, so we need to drill them out. It's roughly about 2 or 3 mil that we need to drill out, so I've got a 16mm reduced shank bit here, and I'm just basically going through and drilling out all the link brackets. The rest of it are not too bad, so we'll just carry on. Something I've been tossing up was to chop the cover off my rear housing and weld the Ruffstuff 9.5 inch Land Cruiser one on. Now obviously the Toyota is not 9.5 inches, in fact it's 8 inch. And so I decided to sit this cover over the top, and I thought, well, actually I could probably make that work. So I took a gamble, I chopped the cover off, I chopped the corners off the 9.5 inch Land Cruiser housing, and what do you know, fits perfectly. I do have to apologise to Ruffstuff though. They have done some absolute artwork welding, and I've come along and made it look like the birds have been circling. There's splatter everywhere, and it looks absolutely terrible compared to their nice artwork. So my apologies, but once it's got some mud on it, nobody will notice the difference. So just after I did the rear, I got round to the front. Now this is off the shelf Toyota diff armour. Nicely folded and cut, ready to rock and roll. All I had to do was scrape it back to paint, stick it on, and glue it on with a hot glue gun. Easy as that. I also stuck the Ruffstuff logo on there because logos are cool. And yeah, so now what I've got to do is stick the truss on the top. The truss goes across here for the rear, and that enables me to weld my mount on to take the links. Right, so I've gone with the Ruffstuff rear mini truss. Now it's a 2-piece system, quite cool. Laser cut, CNC bent. That goes on there like that. Now I've got to mark my center, of course, and then I've got to find the center of this, line them up. Once I've got that, I can then put this one over the top. Once we've got the mini truss on, it's 2-piece, we'll weld it all up. We can then put our top link bracket on, which is also folded 6mm plate. It means business. Ruffstuff, when they say they're bringing the beef, that's no joke. So what we've got to do, I know it looks very high to you guys, but what we need to do here is create some separation between our upper links and our lower links. So the goal here is to try and get 7 to 8 inches, which should be ample enough to run 35-inch tyres. Now, I'm no guru by any means of the imagination, but I've done a little bit of research and I've been talking to some good friends, Benji at Ramped Customs and my good friend Gary at PCI Engineering. They've been helping me out, trying to get my head around what exactly we need to achieve. Now we need about 7 to 8 inches of separation at this end, and then once we're under the truck, it's going to have less separation and the top link slightly lower to stop our anti-squat, or to increase our anti-squat rather. Right, so I've glued the inner piece in, nice and easy. Basically, I stuck the inner piece on the axle, marked where I needed it to be, then I put the outside piece over the top, tacked it together, pulled it off, and glued it up. Easy as. So now, I've marked the center of my axle, and it is ready to go on. Make sure our marks are lined up, and to get extra technical, get my level out and we'll stick that on there. That way I can tell that I'm gluing it on in the right spot. So basically what I've got to do now is tack this onto here, then I'm going to glue it all up. That face doesn't matter. We're making it flush with the diff head where it mounts, making it bang on flush, because we can control the angle of the diff by shortening or lengthening the arms. So I'm going to get to that right about now. Right, so what I've done here is I've got our top link mount, which is going on top of our axle truss. And as you can see, I've got my heim joints in here. You want to be very careful not to leave these heims in when you're welding it up. So what I've done is I've put the plate down on top, and I actually put some 1.2mm washers on the top to give us just that little bit of space to make it easier to get the heims in and out. When they're done up nice and tight, that plate should pull down a little bit. I know it is very thick, 6mm 1/4 inch plate. So normally we would leave a little bit of space just to make life a little bit easier. So I've done that, and it should be completely fine. I mean, we've got the misalignment spaces to take up anything else that's going to cause us trouble. And so basically I've put this plate down, I've held it down and sort of eyeballed it as good as I can, and it looks pretty good. And I've just tacked it into place with 4 tacks. Now what I'm going to do is take the heims out because they have a Teflon liner in them, and that will melt under heat. So we're going to get that out, otherwise we'll ruin the brand new heims, and I really don't want to do that. So we've just shot down and grabbed some more welding gas. While we were there at the hardware store, we picked up some 40mm PVC pipe. You may be thinking, why the hell has he got PVC pipe when you're supposed to be welding steel? Well, this is the same size, almost, as the DOM tubing we're going to be using for our lower links and upper links. So, as you can see, I've tacked into place our upper brackets. Our diff is sitting relatively in place, and now I've got to cut these down to length. And as you'll see down here, this is basically the setup we need to achieve. So this piece here, we're getting welded under the chassis here. So that's going to go up along there, get welded there, roughly. And this end here gets welded onto the axle housing itself. And I'm going to sit down and figure out exactly what I'm doing here, because there's a little bit of maths to it. It's not as easy as just stick it where you want. You do have to work out a few different things like separation, and you have to plan for your anti-squat and anti-dive and things like that. Stuff that I don't know a whole lot about. Well, I figured out the formula last night. You need beer, music, and it really helps if you actually have MIG welding wire and gas to go with that. Things I've been battling this weekend. It's great. But anyways, stayed up late last night. The 4-link is in, as you can see. It's all tacked in place at the moment, nothing crazy, but I think I've worked out most of my angles so that everything's going to perform nicely. Being Toyota axles going onto the Suzuki chassis, obviously the Toyota axles are a bit wider. So what I've done is I've put them out, the brackets out as far as I can, and then obviously the Suzuki chassis is quite narrow, so that's almost given us a slight double triangulation in the 4-link, which is going to help from the axle trying to rotate. So I'm pretty happy with that, and I'm just about to get stuck into the front end, which is going to present itself with a few challenges. Obviously I've got to get around the sump of this giant big block engine, and steering, panhard, all sorts of fun stuff to contend with up the front end. Probably should have started there first, but I just thought, hey, who cares, let's just get some work done. Quite happy with how that rear end's come out actually. It is looking like it's going to perform well. I've got a little bit of adjustment in the Heims to adjust my pinion angle, and basically this gearbox, so this is a Datsun A15 motor, and this gearbox is a dog leg, I think out of a Nissan Bluebird, an old Bluebird, so reverse is first, and then it's got first, second, third, fourth, fifth, fourth, I don't know, one of them gears. It is 5-speed. So as you can see, it's got the gearbox with this little UJ that goes into the Suzuki transfer. Now my plan is to get rid of this whole lot, and I'm looking at putting a 3S GTE engine in with a Hilux R151 box or W58, something like that. And so that combination ends me about here. I managed to get the front end in, and it's come out pretty good. It was a bit of a battle, because obviously we have to get this panhard bracket, lower link bracket, and the upper link bracket all here, and we have to leave room for the shock. And we still have bump stops to go as well. That's a job for another day though, because right now, I've sent the pictures to Benji at Ramped Customs. He builds rock crawlers in Australia, so he's got a pretty good knowledge on how to set up suspension for the least amount of bumps there and anti-squat, etc. And I've sent him the pictures and he said it looks good, but we need to make a few adjustments. Hence the reason why we tack it all together. So what I've got to do now is raise this top link bracket up about 2 inches, and the rear end, he said, looks good, but then I went on to tell him that I had set it up at full bump, and he said, those are the angles I want at ride height. So I have no problems admitting that there was some mistakes along the way. I'd rather fix it now while it's tacked together than weld it all up and have to chop things off. This is exactly why you tack it all together and do things slowly, and don't be shy to ask other people's opinions. I mean, not everyone's going to know what they're doing, but it's good to bounce ideas off people. People might see things that you have missed. I'm really looking forward to how the Suzuki's going to perform out in the field. We went for low, long links, and the goal is to try and have nice articulation with semi-comfortable ride, and this huge big block power plant is just going to be a game changer. Well, look out world when I'm loose with my little 1500 carby. Makes a lot of power, that one. That's enough for this episode. If you guys want to stay up to date with the Suzuki build, make sure you follow us on YouTube, subscribe, and hit the little bell so that you always get the notifications you need. And if you're on Facebook, we will be posting it as well. We're going to try and keep updated with live videos. And if you're not on Snapchat by now, you need to be, at Offroad Addicts. We keep the action flowing when we can, when we're out in the field, and when we're building things in the shed. So we'll see you guys in the vlog. Thanks for watching this episode, and massive thanks to Ruffstuff Specialties. Check them out.